Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is Wednesday evening here at this channel. We're doing a makeup live from yesterday. My co-host had some family obligations that he needed to take care of, so we moved it to tonight. But he will be here shortly. I don't know. He's getting held up because he's got a channel too, but he will be here and we will get this live kicked off. Yeah, I know, Frankeny, right? Chad comes in and he's just a mess. He comes in here, you got to come in here freaking appropriate. You can't be doing that. Go take care of your things and then come back. We can't have that in here now. Frankeny, we may have to get him some Depends. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Maybe we need to invest in some Depends. Oh, just watch where you stand. Okay. Yeah, we don't want to be dealing with that kind of mess in here. But tonight we are going to travel to West Virginia to the Mountville State Penitentiary. Now, this was Chad's what he wanted us to cover. So this is what we're doing tonight. And I have watched some stuff on this. This is a creepy ass place. So I think y'all are going to enjoy it. And it's just not that I'm scared of too much, but I would probably have to question going into this place, especially after dark. Now, daytime, yeah, I'd be good. I'd go through it all. But at nighttime, I don't think so. Because I had watched a video about a paranormal team that got a deal that to go in and do an overnight investigation at this location. It freaked them out so bad they left in the middle of the night. Never have they done another paranormal investigation to this day. I don't know what they seen or what happened, but to this day they won't ever even think about doing another paranormal investigation. It is wild. And Chad's grandfather served time in this penitentiary. He has a family connection to this place. So yeah, I mean, it's different, when you have someone who has a family connection to a location. So I thought that was kind of interesting when he said, yeah, my grandpa served time here. I'm like, what? So yeah, he would know about this place. So I thought it was really interesting that he had a family connection to this location. I'm like, oh no. But we'll do it. We're up for it. We're here to freaking do this live with y'all tonight. But you all will understand when I say this place is just creepy anyway. I'm like sitting back watching some stuff on this location. I'm like, damn, I don't think I'd be going in here at night. Daytime, yeah. Nighttime, hell no. So it has a story, and some of the stories you're going to hear tonight, there's a lot of violence that happen here, a lot of prisoners killing other prisoners. And the story goes, if you died in this prison, your soul was trapped there forever. So they're kind of giving, they're kind of saying, well, the reason all this paranormal activity goes on inside this penitentiary is because of all the souls that were trapped. I think there was 96 people that died within this prison that got, whether they were executed or taken out by another prisoner or there was suicides there. Their souls are trapped there. And they say that's what makes it such a paranormal hotspot, because of the souls that are trapped within this place. And there is Nana Kim. Come on in, Nana Kim. Always good to see you, girlfriend. That's where they sent a mofo when they shot a family member. Okay. Well, this is not nowhere I would want to go. Well, I'm not going to go to prison anyway, but this would be the last place I would want to go. Just from the stories I have heard, the violence that took place in this place, I'm like, no. But y'all will get to hear some of these stories and get a lot of the background and history on this location. Once my co-host gets here, I don't know where he's at. And there's Holy Moly. Come on in. How are you doing? It's good to see you. But I know he's on his way. He should be getting here at any time. Yeah, we felt kind of bad because we couldn't do this live last night. We was both ready to do it, but like I said, he had some family obligations he had to take care of, and there just wasn't, he wasn't back in time. So I was like, well, I'll let everybody know, and then we will do it tomorrow night. So that's what we agreed on. So it's a makeup live. That's the beauty of YouTube. You can schedule something. If it doesn't work out, you can always do it the next day. It's a beautiful thing. But anyway, his stream just ended. Okay, yeah, he should be on his way over then, because he's got a channel too, and I was not aware that he was doing a live. So he sent me a message. He said, I'm trying to wrap my stuff up, and I'll be over there as soon as I get done. That was about 20 minutes ago or so. So he should be over here shortly. But it is good to see you all this evening. I hope y'all have been doing well. I have been doing good. Yeah, I don't want no part of this place. If I was to get into legal trouble and had to go to prison somewhere, which this will never happen, but this would be the last place I would want to even think about being sent to. If it was still, in operation. It's not even in operation anymore. I forgot what year they closed it. It was in the 90s. I want to say like 94, 95, when they closed this penitentiary. But now you can go and get tours of the place. There's that option. If you want to go in, you have a paranormal team, you can go in and do an overnight investigation. But yeah, this place is, I guess, is it a popular place that people go? Well, there's people, that go to these different places. Tornado Sun. All right, Nana Kim, you take care. We'll see you here when you get back. But you can get tours of the place. You can go in and look at the actual facility itself. It's somewhere, I would go do a tour during the daytime. But at night, I just don't think you could get me in this place at night. I just don't want really no part of it. Because there's too much bad in there for me. Jump in the middle of that bitch, talk about, oh God, hell no, I ain't doing that. Yeah, there's just too much bad in there for me to go into at nighttime. I know where to go and where to stay away from. And this would be one of those places I would stay away from at night. Safest place. I don't know if it'd be the safest place to go. I don't know. I might have to debate that one with you. I guess nobody'd be bothering you.
Uh-oh.
And there's Outlaw. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, I went a lot longer than I was supposed to. I had a guest stay for a while, wanted to ask questions. So yeah, it's yeah, I went a lot longer than I was going to. I thought we were starting an
Well, it's
hour later.
okay. We just been, small talking over here waiting on you.
Yeah. Well, I got it mixed up. I thought we were starting an hour later, like about 40 minutes from now, and I got completely sidetracked. So yeah,
It's
this is
all
kind of
good.
all
Well, I
right.
guess Chad kind of makes a point though. If you wanted to hide that, or that would be the safest place to go. Just run inside this building. Nobody gonna bother you in there. It's okay. But it makes sense. I kind of see where he's coming from now. But
Yeah,
Outlaw, how you been?
I just like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to get things done today, and I lost track of time on everything.
Well, I told him I told him normally we would have been here yesterday, but you had some family obligations you had to take care of, so we just rescheduled it for tonight.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we got
But
all
I hope
that squared
everything
away.
went well yesterday.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, real good,
Good.
real. So all right, let me see what we got here.
Now you seen those videos and how I posted them up.
Let me see.
If
Hold
you
on.
just start with the first one and just work your way down, it'll go in the correct order.
All right, where did you post these?
They was over in our over, and I sent them to you over the DM over in Discord.
Okay, all right. So, A Century of Horror and Hauntings, West Virginia,
Yep.
Ghost Hauntings. All right, yeah, sounds good to me. Let me get this keyed up here.
Yeah, I think if people want spooky places, I think we've got the right one tonight.
Yeah, I was really excited for this one last week, so yeah, I can't wait to dig in. What's going on, Holly? Good to see you. Yeah, I know some of y'all was one of them was over there with me at the MGTOW stream. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Well, what was y'all talking about over there?
Oh, talking about men starting to revolt against government.
Oh, interesting talk.
Oh yeah, I think so. A few people were watching that. All right, we got.
And like I told everybody, this was Chad's submission, what he wanted us to cover. So we're here for it.
Oh yeah, like I said, I can't wait for this one. This one had me excited last week. So if what he's saying is true, man, yeah, we're in for a good one tonight, obviously. So the first one's keyed up: A Century of Horror and Hauntings, West Virginia Penitentiary. I think we're in for a good one from the sounds of it. Shoot, yeah. So shout out to you, Chad. This is the location you picked for the show tonight. A Century of Horror and Hauntings, West Virginia Penitentiary. Here we go.
When you were led through the iron gates, when you were stripped and deloused, when you were given your uniform, when you were led down the lonely halls, when those bars were shut, when that slam bar was violently pulled down, you knew that if you were lucky enough to make it out, you'd do your best to never go back. Some had no choice. For some, this was for life. The lonely, cold, Arctic isolation that you would feel upon your arrival would be your truth for the remainder of your life. And for 94 souls, life ended here. Some met their end at the end of a rope. Some would meet their end sitting in Old Sparky. The conditions would grow even harsher through the years, with hazardous and unsanitary conditions the norm, and misery your only companion. The West Virginia Penitentiary was designed as a Gothic-style structure, imposing by any standards in Moundsville, West Virginia. It embodied the very definition of doing hard time. This wasn't just a dot in the annals of history. This prison was in operation from 1876 to 1995. Stories of prison escapes, underhanded tactics, violence, extreme unsanitary conditions, fights, gambling, and a deadly prison riot litter the history of the West Virginia Penitentiary, with unwanted attention and a permanently stagnant reputation. It wasn't always this way. As a matter of fact, at one time, the prison was considered a place of true reform. Come with me. Let's take a closer look at the West Virginia Penitentiary.
Let's do it. I love the architecture of this place.
In 1863, West Virginia would declare itself an independent state with an independent government. So as a new state, it lacked almost everything that other states had. As such, prisons were scarce. As a matter of fact, West Virginia had no prisons. Sure, there were local courthouses and jails, but there came a point when that would no longer be adequate. And although several attempts were made by Governor Borman to get the legislature to build a prison, it wouldn't happen for years. The escape of 9 inmates from a local jail led to the legislature finally taking the measure seriously. Well, that and the fact that the media began lobbying for the issue as well. So political pressure also worked in 1865. Moundsville would be the chosen site and construction began. At this time, the state capital of West Virginia was in nearby Wheeling, so this would work out well on multiple fronts. With a temporary structure built, officials would be able to take the time to find out exactly what they wanted and how they wanted to build it. The building was made using sandstone and, yes, prison labor. When viewing the building, you can see that the craftsmanship was remarkable. The building itself was completed in phases, and when looking at the building, you can tell a stark difference in the quality of work between the prison laborers and the contractors, with the prison laborers being much more skilled in the building's construction. When the prison officially opened, 251 male inmates would call the West Virginia Penitentiary home. Inmates would be given various jobs to help with the reformation process: a bakery, a prison hospital, even blacksmiths. Another boast that could be made at the turn of the century is that the prison was nearly self-sustainable. If it could be boasted that prison life was good, even in the smallest sense, the West Virginia Penitentiary can make that claim. It was said by the warden that due to the better than decent conditions, that the behavior and discipline of the prisoners was in good standing. There would even be a library. There would be classes. And yet, this spirit and atmosphere of reformation wouldn't last. That may be the biggest understatement of this entire video. You can't really put your finger on what happened or how it happened. It wasn't as if one singular mistake occurred that began changing the atmosphere within. The atmosphere through the years past its infancy would begin sinking into a deep state of disrepair. It was multiple issues. Conditions were worsening. Sanitation was worsening. Perhaps the worst of all conditions began occurring: overcrowding. The cells were 5 by 7, small by any standards. There would be 3 prisoners placed in each cell. You'd have 2 bunks and 1 on the floor. It was said that the kitchen would see vermin and oversized rats. It was also said that the rats were so large and bold that They would steal the food from the plates of the prisoners.
Oh, hell no. No. I don't know about all that now. Golly. A rat that big? That sounds like New York rats.
It's no
Them
wonder
was some
that the
rats.
prisoners
Golly, man. Sound like they need to be paying rent.
began lashing out, not only at the guards, but also at each other. 36 homicides took place during the life of the prison. 36. One man who tried to serve his time as quietly as possible was a man by the name of R.D. Wall. He was well liked by both prisoners and guards alike. When some new inmates arrived, they didn't like how friendly R.D. Wall was with the guards. They would catch him alone, isolate him, and violently murder him. This is just one incident that I've described. Unfortunately, these tortured grounds hold the memories of other violent outbursts that would shake to the core, scenes that would scar most for life, scenes that would see people like Elmer Bruner strapped to Old Sparky and have an execution carried.
What do you think they ate?
They he's saying they ate rats.
There's my pappy cell. Oh shit.
Was that Thursday night mystery meat outlaw?
I don't know. Good Lord. Crazy, man.
Out by electrocution, the last man to receive such a punishment in 1959. Scenes that would lead to the terrifying 1979 Prison Break. November 7th, 1979. It was a Wednesday, and West Virginia State Trooper Philip Kestner was off duty and happened to be driving past the prison with his wife. Trooper Kestner noticed something was not quite right when he saw 15 prisoners on the wrong side of the sandstone walls. Inmate Ronald Williams had managed to steal the firearm of a guard. He was serving time for the murder of an officer on the Beckley, West Virginia Police Department, and now here he was on the other side of the prison walls after pulling off a daring escape along with 14 other men. When Trooper Kestner encountered the escaped convicts, he took action. While doing so, he would be overwhelmed by the prisoners. He would be pulled from the car and violently murdered on the streets of Moundsville. Although he put up a brave fight, even returning fire, his injuries would prove fatal. Ronald Williams fled, and not only did he flee, he would be successful in doing so. He remained missing and wanted for 18 months, even going so far as taunting the authorities from afar. He would be wanted in a string of robberies stretching from Pennsylvania all the way to Arizona. He would eventually be caught after a shootout in New York City, where he was caught and then returned to West Virginia. He is still serving time in West Virginia today. Although the prison escape was an extremely notable stain on the penitentiary, it was nothing compared to what was to come. It was New Year's Day, 1986, and the West Virginia Penitentiary was in the midst of turmoil. Inmates would roam freely. The prison was extremely overcrowded, and the conditions on the inside were deteriorating badly. Disease was running through the prison. Rats, mice, and rodents moved about freely. Even the plumbing was bad. The conditions made it to the point that the events of New Year's Day, 1986, would not be a spur-of-the-moment decision, but one that would be carefully planned, one that would be made easier due to the fact that several guards had the day off for the holiday. Not only was a riot planned to protest the conditions, it was carefully planned. The group of 20 inmates would call themselves the Avengers. Their plan began to unfold at 5:30 p.m. They would storm the cafeteria where 6 security officers would be stationed, and within seconds, the rioters would have the guards and a food service worker in their own handcuffs. And not only were the guards targeted during the 2-day riot, 3 inmates were killed. The rioters had demands and only agreed to stop the riot when those demands were met. The leader of the Avengers would be named Danny Lehman. It was agreed upon that he would be the best person to lead the negotiations. The odd thing is, Danny Lehman wasn't even one of the inmates that started the riot. He was just appointed a spokesman of sorts. The riot grew to the point that West Virginia Governor Arch Moore went in to meet with the rioters and tried to hash out a resolution. It was agreed that new practices would come into place, and as far as the facility goes, a new cafeteria would come out of the situation. The atmosphere within the walls, even going back to the 1960s, was all part of sealing its fate. And by 1995, after a peak of roughly 2,000 inmates, the West Virginia Penitentiary had shrunk to around 700 inmates. Building more prisons helped alleviate the overcrowding, but the beginning of the end would come in 1986 when the West Virginia Supreme Court would rule that a 5-by-7 cell was cruel and unusual punishment. So with these cells being that size, the West Virginia Penitentiary would be phased out, with inmates being transferred to other areas.
That's interesting.
With the atmosphere of death, torture, violence, it is no wonder that those who have spent considerable time here will tell you that some of the souls that died here are said to remain here. When you combine all of this with the fact that the penitentiary is built just across the road from ancient native burial grounds, it's no wonder that this is considered a hotbed of paranormal activity. Just think, whether it was by violence or natural causes, almost 1,000 men died right here on these grounds. Some would die by hanging, some by electrocution, but all of this death and violence points towards a perfect storm of the paranormal. It is well known in this area that the building is haunted, although it is not exactly known when those claims would start being made. Even today, those familiar with the building will tell you that strange things happen here. So much so that several different paranormal investigation shows have been here to film. If you remember earlier, we spoke of R.D. Wall, who would be murdered by inmates. His spirit is among the first to be spoke about by people who experienced supernatural encounters with him. With a violent death, it would be easy to see why he would have a restless spirit. This is truly a location that embodies the phrase that those who seek will find. If you go looking for the tortured spirits of those left behind, you are likely to find them. What happened to all of the bodies left behind? Prisoners who had no family, no friends, no one claimed them or even care for them for that matter. Just a few miles beyond the West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia, lies the White Gate Cemetery. Some of those here would die from natural causes, and some here would die from execution. This cemetery is also known as the Tomb of the Unclaimed Prisoner. Although we can't quite get there due to the road being washed out, the markers are just small little signs with names. Some list a Department of Corrections number, and no doubt some are not marked at all. Just over in this very cemetery, you will find inmates who committed some extremely heinous crimes. One of the most notorious prisoners buried here is a man known as Harry Powers, which was the last alias that he would use. He was born in the Netherlands and would be executed at the age of 38. He would lure women using personal ads, all under the guise of looking for love. He would ultimately take their lives and take their money. He was convicted in the murder of 5 women, although it is highly suspected that he was involved in more. Before he would make it to Moundsville, he was almost lynched, but the mob was thwarted by officers. He would be hanged in 1932.
Good.
As if what we've talked about wasn't heinous enough, enter into our conversation, the Sugar Shack. From a paranormal standpoint, this is one of the most active areas on the grounds. However, even more frightening is what took place here amongst the living. This area was a room in part of a basement attached to the yard. It was also known as a place of very little supervision. As such, gambling, fighting, beatings, and other promiscuous activities are known to have occurred in the Sugar Shack. And although it was a recreation room, the extracurricular activity happening here never resembled anything innocent or normal. Unspeakable truths, disturbing stories, heinous happenings were all part of the norm in the Sugar Shack.
Wow. One thing I'll say though, like I said at the beginning of this video, I love the architecture of this place. Like the stonework, the way it's laid out, it's all beautiful. Nope, fuck that place. Been there.
Yeah, I don't ever recall seeing a prison built like this one.
No, this is fascinating. I love this place. I think I would visit though because of the ghost, but I love it. What do you think?
What? You ain't going to visit there?
If it's that haunted, I don't know.
You wouldn't go during the daytime.
Ah, man, I don't know.
I'd probably go during the day, but not at night.
Yeah. If I was going to go here, yeah, it would be during the day, most definitely. Yeah, I don't think I could do this place at night.
The last inmates to be led out the doors of the West Virginia Penitentiary took their final walk in 1995, when the doors would be shut as a working prison forever. The destruction and carnage of almost 120 years has left the inside of the walls of this dark place noticeably bare. It now stands as a sandstone time capsule of treachery and death. This place now stands as a troubling reminder of what once was, how time has changed this place from a barricaded structure that everyone wanted to leave to a historic artifact that people willingly visit. Only those that resided here and worked here know of the turmoil that took place inside of its walls. The rest of us listen to stories passed to us from others, trying to wrap our heads around the heinous happenings that occurred within the West Virginia Penitentiary. And if we listen close enough, we may be horrified by what we actually hear.
Ooh. Ooh. Damn. Now that's creepy.
Yeah, it's
That's
different.
creepy. Oh man. Like I said, there ain't no way. I don't think I could.
Outlaw, it is ranked within the top 5 most haunted penitentiaries in the U.S. I think it's either number 2 or 3 on the list.
Good grief. Mm-mm.
Chad, I think he's referencing to this Sugar Shack. Yeah, there's probably all kinds of things happened at Sugar Shack.
That's why they got their boots taken.
Mm-hmm.
No fucking way. Like I said, though, after the first video, though, the architecture is beautiful. I love the the influence of like the old castle style, you know,
Yeah,
way
it's
they
kind of
laid it
got
out.
that medieval look to it.
Right, like a medieval castle. I
Yeah.
love it. You know, I hate the fact of the conditions that people lived in there. You know, because according to that video, it was some of the worst times for people, but and they knew how to build them back then. I'll say that, but no, I will not be visiting that place at night ever. No.
What
I
got
just
me outlaw was rats in the kitchen.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, Jesus.
They'd be like running around all over the place and they're trying to fix food for people. I'm like, oh God, no.
That's the room they took you, Booty.
Yeah, they probably did, Chad. We could only, we don't know, but I'm sure there was a lot of things happen that they probably don't talk about.
All right. Now this second one, I think, is fixing to amp up the ghost stuff from the way it looks. So,
Yeah, it gets a little more into the paranormal side of it. Well, it starts, going down that road.
What a nightmare! Yeah, nope.
Now, could you imagine outlaw being in prison and you be sleeping and a freaking rat run across you that's bigger than a freaking gopher?
Good grief. The what got me was when I was watching that a while ago, how tight the living quarters was for them inmates.
Yeah, a 5x7.
Jesus Christ, the bed was like right on top of the commode. I don't know that I like that.
No,
thank you.
Well, whenever you're ready, we'll get this next one going.
Yeah, I got it queued up. All right. Ghostly Secrets in a Haunted West Virginia Prison. Mysteries of the Abandoned Science Channel. I think this
And as always, these videos are used for educational and research purposes only.
Absolutely. Yeah, want to make that disclaimer. So let's see what's going on here.
Approaching the building and gazing upon these 24-foot high walls, it's an immensely imposing experience. There's a distinct feeling that you are going to be unwelcome here.
This building looks kind of like a European castle or palace, but with a very gloomy and highly fortified aspect.
Upon entering, any faint hope of finding a fairy tale home rapidly disappears.
Inside, it's really not clear what this place is. There's a canteen with paintings, and upstairs there's even medical and dental equipment. There's something rather dark and sinister about it all.
In fact, this building has ties to one of America's most notorious criminals, and some believe that still stalking the halls are the spirits of those who suffered here.
When you get deeper inside, you notice the graffiti, the rusting iron bars, the peeling paint, and the feeling that terrible things happened here.
Clearly, this was never designed to be a happy place, and since it's all now falling apart and decaying, that just adds to the overall air of despair.
How would this place attain infamy? And what horrors remain lurking inside? Local historian Ryan Zacharel knows this vast building's dark past.
This was one of the most horrific places in the world, and still to this day it's notorious for the atrocities that occurred here.
In the 1860s, a series of escapes from county jails meant the new state of West Virginia needed to find a solution.
The inmates completely up and left and were never found. And it was at that point that they realized they needed something higher security. They needed something more permanent to contain the criminals.
The solution was this: the West Virginia Penitentiary. But this was no ordinary prison.
From the very beginning, it was designed to hold the worst of the worst. This place was supposed to be a fortress from which escape was impossible.
But in the 20th century, a frightening turn of events began putting pressure on these walls.
In wider society, ever more people were being convicted, and of increasingly violent crimes. The prison was designed to house only a few hundred people, yet it ended up with over 2,000. The result was uncontrollable violence.
To try and limit the danger, areas of the prison were sectioned off.
The premeditated slaughterings of their fellow inmates made this the most dangerous cell block in the West Virginia Penitentiary. They called this cell block the Alamo because they genuinely believed that they wouldn't make it out of here alive. They had to spend at least 22 hours out of every day locked inside these 5x7 cells, and they are absolutely tiny.
But locking them up didn't stop their violent tendencies.
It was all about survival inside this cell block, and survival meant arming themselves. They would cut pieces of metal off the doors or the bunks, and then once they had that piece of metal off, on the inside of their cell, they could bend down and actually sharpen that knife on the concrete, which you can see scratch marks right here, where an inmate turned that from a dull piece of steel into a deadly knife.
And the inmates weren't just trying to kill each other. Chuck Gent was a guard at the facility for 9 brutal years.
What happened was they was doing a survey to find out how hot it got in here, and they stuck thermometers up everywhere. The inmates stole them, broke it open, stole all the mercury, and then they tried to poison me with it and a cup of coffee. I got fortunate when I happened to glance down into the cup and found it. There wasn't a day you didn't come in here, you wasn't in fear of your life.
The horrors of this place have stayed with Chuck ever since.
I have flashbacks. When you see a guy with a 25-pound weight plate buried in his forehead, or a 12-inch piece of steel that runs up to his eye and up into his brain and out the back of his head. The guy set on fire and he's burning and his skin's boiling and stuff like this. You end up having a hard side to you to survive this.
But surprisingly, despite the horrors that went on inside these walls, somehow this place became a public attraction.
94 men convicted of some of the most violent crimes were executed in a building called the Death House that once stood out here on the North Yard.
Oh my God.
They used to perform these executions by hanging publicly. People would literally travel miles to come and watch these executions. They would sell tickets to these, and people would bring their whole family. The kids would come and have a picnic during the execution.
While the brutality of this place could certainly draw a crowd, it wasn't only the paying public wishing to come here.
There's this room called the Sugar Shack where prisoners could go. There was no supervision. The guards never went down there. They were afraid to go down there, and all kinds of terrible things happened. Some prisoners liked this setup. Some of them actually asked to be transferred to this prison because they knew they'd have more freedom to engage in drugs, violence, gangs.
Counted amongst those wishing to find themselves in this prison was one of the most infamous killers in American history, who also had a personal link to this site. In West Virginia stands the derelict remains of one of the country's most brutal institutions. It's a place that hides a link to a notorious criminal.
In the late 1930s, a woman named Kathleen Maddox was sentenced to serve time here. She had a young son named Charlie Maddox. This little boy came to visit his mother inside this penitentiary. This little boy eventually went on to become the infamous Charles Manson.
In March of 1983, the warden was handed a letter. Now, incarcerated for his involvement in a series of brutal murders, Charles Manson was requesting a transfer here.
Oh, wow.
There was no way the authorities were going to allow that. And the warden at the prison at the time wrote back, he said it would, quote, be a cold day in hell before Charles Manson moved to West Virginia.
Even without that killer being added into the mix, this place was already struggling to do the very thing it was designed for.
West Virginia State Prison was supposed to be a fortress from the very beginning. Just because they built it as an inescapable fortress didn't mean it was actually inescapable.
In November of 1979, we had the largest mass escape from this penitentiary. 15 inmates created a plan to smuggle in a firearm, take an officer hostage, get to the control panel, and eventually let themselves out the front door of this prison. The city of Moundsville was absolutely terrified.
Outside, an exchange of gunfire killed a trooper and an inmate. The other 14 escapees were eventually recaptured. This was just one of over 200 escapes that took place from the penitentiary.
Prisoners even joked openly about how easy it was to escape. The idea of an impregnable fortress had failed spectacularly.
Whoa.
Eventually, all the inmates would flee the appalling prison. The Supreme Court deemed the site unfit for purpose, and in 1995, its doors slammed closed for the final time. Today, decades after it was abandoned, the macabre site has become a mecca for intrepid visitors.
This penitentiary is thought to be one of the most haunted places in the United States of America. And one of the most common forms of supernatural phenomena is a shadow figure called the Shadow Man. In 2004, a lady named Polly Gear actually captured it in a photograph. She saw the figure walking towards her, so she took one picture down this hallway, and right in front of this door, the figure was standing, looking at her.
Ooh.
Even with the site's worst days long gone, perhaps the horrors of this place are still not quite over.
Right. Wow.
This place has such a dark, dark history to it.
I love it. That creeped me out.
It creeped you out.
Yeah, that kind of creeped me out there at the end.
Oh, well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, you know, I'm watching these videos and I just get a sense of dread. Like when he takes you down the corridors and, you know, shows you the living conditions of this place. Like it's just an overwhelming sense of dread. Oh my God, it makes my blood run cold. Oh, welcome to the dark side.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. Could you believe Charles Manson wanted to come there and serve time?
Oh my God. And we all know how deep and sick and twisted he is. Like,
Now, see, I knew his mother was in prison at one time when he was young, but I didn't know it was here. So that was something I learned.
yeah, I didn't know that. Now, I've listened to, you know, his videos where they would interview him specifically and he'd talk about things. And I always found what he said about stuff fascinating, but I don't know. Yeah, the fact he wanted to come here. Which,
Yeah, I
you know,
thought, huh?
I wonder, you know, it makes me wonder why they didn't want him coming here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Why they didn't want him to be there.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it really is. Because, like, the only thing that I can come up with on that is maybe Charles Manson knew how to manipulate people and work people. And had he gone there, maybe he would have had time to do that and get the people to turn against the guards.
Maybe
But-
so.
and
I mean, that was an interesting fact there that he wanted to transfer to this particular prison. I find that very interesting. Now we know Charles Manson was a twisted individual anyway.
right.
But why did they not want him there? That's the question at hand here.
I would be interested to know more about that. Dig up, why that is.
We might have to do some digging on that because I didn't know this. But I do know from some documentaries I've watched on him that his mother did serve prison time, and it's interesting to find out this is where she was at.
That could
And
quite
don't tell me he wanted to be there because of the sentimental attachment.
well. You never know. That is interesting too. What you just said, I didn't know that either. I mean, it's possible, right? It's possible. He could have wanted to be closer to his mom. Comfort. I personally believe. I personally believe had he transferred there, yeah, he would have had some sort of psychological manipulation over people.
Oh, yeah, he was a very influential individual because he knew how to manipulate people to get them to do what he wanted them to do. You can be in 3 states with it in minutes. Oh, yeah, if you was here and you escaped, you could be in another state within minutes. Ain't that crazy?
Cult life.
Yeah, that's it. Cult life.
Oh, wrong button. Let's see here. This
So,
third
Outlaw,
video-
as of right now,
Yeah.
do you feel this place is haunted?
I'm going to say, yeah, well, based upon the walkthroughs of both videos where they're walking through the corridors and showing stuff, I definitely feel there is a dark energy there, like a dark, unsettling feeling. I'm gonna say that there's probably ghosts in there. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what the audience thinks. Do you all think this place is haunted? 1 for yes, 2 for no. We'll see what their opinions are, as to what they know to right now.
Heck yeah.
This will be interesting. I think personally, I'm like you, there is a lot of dark there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm probably 99% convinced this place would be haunted. Chad says he already knows, so he's saying, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, just knowing what I know up to this point, the history, the violence, everything that happened there, I'd have to say I'd probably be 99% convinced it is.
I will say I believe he's right. So, yeah, based upon what I'm seeing here in this third video, which I think is the cherry on the cake, cherry on the sundae here, might be seeing some apparitions in this one. Now, here's the question I'll pose to you. So this is an hour-long video. Do we want to play that in its entirety, or do we want to play half of it? What do we want to do?
We got time to play it all.
Okay.
And, we can stop along. If there's a stopping point, you want to talk about something or whatever. We got time. I ain't in no hurry.
No, I'm not either. All right. Well, it's keyed up whenever we're ready. This one, I think, is going to be the one with the ghosts in it, I hope. And according to the thumbnail, I think we're going to see some. So, yeah.
For those curious to know what life was like in a maximum security prison, they need only visit West Virginia's now closed Moundsville Penitentiary. If you've ever wondered what death was like in a maximum security prison, then come at night.
No, I'm not one of those guys that gets frightened easily. And I don't even believe in ghosts. Or I didn't until I went to Moundsville. My wife's into this paranormal stuff, and she dragged me to one of those guided tours at the Moundsville Penitentiary. This guy was leading the tour. Led us down to this area in the prison. He was talking about all the prisoners who had committed suicide and committed other acts of murder within the prison.
For the crimes they committed behind these walls, they beat, stabbed, and murdered behind these walls. In addition to all the violence that occurred here, many of these men got severely depressed, and they committed suicide by hanging themselves in their cells.
I was just joking around with my wife. And then all of a sudden, I felt this scratching on my face, like something was tearing into my skin. Reached my hand up and I brought it down. There was blood. It's one thing to be a skeptic when someone else is telling you what's going on. It's a whole nother thing when you have to experience it firsthand.
Gordon Jones learned what it means to scoff at the idea that ghosts inhabit Moundsville.
Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia was one of the most violent prisons in United States history. Murder, suicide, other violent crime, that was daily fare at Moundsville. Small wonder, then, that this is considered to be one of the most haunted facilities in all of North America.
Here, behind the walls of West Virginia's Moundsville prison, were housed some of the most brutal individuals imaginable. People for whom murder, rape, and assault were a way of life. But even for these human predators, life behind these walls could be maddening. And some choose the shortest route out of this penitentiary.
I worked a total of 18 years in this institution, 16 years of it, which was in healthcare, 2 years in administration as a deputy warden. My third day on the job in this institution, I was ordered to North Hall just as I entered work to cut a man down who had hung himself that morning. And they've always had a statement here at the prison that if you died in here, your soul stayed here. So I think that has a lot to do with a lot of paranormal activity that we have inside the institution.
Tom Moore and his group of researchers from Mid-Ohio Valley Ghost Hunters been to Moundsville before. Today, they will focus on areas with a known history of violence, beginning with the Alamo, where the most dangerous criminals were confined.
The Alamo is basically the part where if you came to this prison, you pretty much never got out. Murderers, severe criminals lived in this area. I'm currently using my night shot camcorder, seeing if I can capture any phenomena on film.
This prison, of course, has a lot of different types of hauntings and spirits and ghosts. Has a lot of imprint hauntings. That's another real feature where you hear sounds, doors opening and closing. And then you also have other types of non-human types of spirits, which is rather interesting, as well as earthbound spirits, unhappy spirits that really have no way of knowing how to move on.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
Having pain in my back and it doubled me over, and I screamed, and one of the girls came over to see if I was okay, and I was fine, and we walked away. But later I found out from one of the former guards, who is now a tour guide here at the prison, that one of the inmates was actually stabbed in his lower back, almost at that precise place outside of his cell. It was one of the most disturbing experiences I've ever had.
There's the legend of one ghost inmate, known as Boss Ghost. In real life, his name was Red Snyder. When Snyder was apprehended in the basement of his home, he was cleaning up after what was to be his most notorious crime. A day earlier, Red Snyder had butchered his father, his mother, and even their dog. Their bodies were chopped up and neatly packed into a set of suitcases.
Red Snyder was an inmate that the entire time I was here for 18 years, he remained locked up in what we call the North Hall or the Alamo. I think I only saw him unlocked one time. His behavior was such that from the administrative standpoint, it wasn't safe for him to be in population. While he was in here, he killed twice. He had the notorious name, and somebody wanted to take that name with him. And so right before the closure of our prison, two boys got up one morning to go to recreation. He was supposed to go with them. And both of those boys stabbed him to death, stabbed him 38 times. So the Red Snyder aura stays with us to this day because his soul is inside this prison.
The paranormal researchers begin their work in the cell of notorious murderer Red Snyder.
There's nothing in here now.
It's a current 64, 65 degrees in here. It's consistent.
Oh. Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Uh-oh. There they go. He's back. Well, earlier in the evening, we were in this particular section, and Red was being discussed. He sort of visited us for a while. Well, he's not totally understanding what's going on, and it pulls him back here, for you to even mention his name or talk about him. With any kind of a spirit, the more you talk about them, the more you focus on them, the stronger they get, And same is true with him, but he's fading in and out, which is interesting why he's doing that. Right now, what I'm feeling is I feel in my throat if someone has my voice box and is actually pressing on my voice box right now. That's not unusual in places like this. And probably after I go home after a while, I'll be okay. But right now, there's a lot of pressure right on my voice box as I'm talking about this.
We were walking down the Alamo once again. I was walking with one of the tour guides who was formerly a prison guard, and we saw the Shadow Man. and he's this shadowy, dark figure. And we saw him at the exact same time, and as we tried to approach him, he kept stepping back. Every couple steps we tried to take forward, he'd recede back. And the thing about the Shadow Man is that his face is dark, you can't see it, it's a shadow. And it's one of the most common sightings here. A lot of people have seen the Shadow Man.
We find it throughout the prison. The most famous one now is the Shadow Man. I've actually seen him in 2 different photographs by 2 different people that have photographed him inside the institution. Can't explain who he is or where he came from, but it's certainly a shadow of a man inside this institution.
We're about to do an investigation of the hole, which is sometimes referred to as solitary confinement. In this location, there was an inmate who was cut to ribbons by a group of inmates who thought he was a snitch for the warden. People say he's still here. He still works here. He's still down here in the dark. This is part of the maintenance area. They have the boiler rooms. So they ambushed him down here and cut him to ribbons before anyone found him. And this is where they found his body. The sightings of him walking above this area were documented by the guards while the prison was still open. They would call from one guard tower to the next to see if one of the inmates was out when he wasn't supposed to be, and that was after the murder.
Once I walked in here, pretty much what I felt from the inmate that was actually murdered down here was he was first ambushed. He was stabbed in the kidneys. That's where the initial blows started as his back was turned. And that's pretty much, they were pretty strong stabs there in the kidneys. But this is not the kind of spirit I really want to open myself up to, and begin to communicate with. I don't want to. So I'm not. I just don't really want to open up to him.
The Sugar Shack is a place located in our basement. It was named because it was an area where the inmates would go and play cards, recreation, and so forth. It became a very violent place. There was a lot of strong arming that went on inside there. Strong arming is where a tougher inmate would take something from a weaker inmate. So when it came to the gambling issues, when it came to playing cards, when it came down to exchange of money, it was very violent in that area. It's very hard to cure. It's very difficult for officers to do their job in that area. It only lasted about 1.5 years, and then after that, we closed the Sugar Shack.
We're getting ready to do investigation on the Sugar Shack, which is one of the most active places in the prison. There were a lot of violence, a lot of rapes, shankings, a lot of horrible things have left their imprints on this area. And we're going to investigate and see what's still down here.
You're a brave woman. That's all I'm going to tell you.
I'm already getting activity on the Gauss.
You're brave.
The electricity's off, so it can't be an external source. Okay, with the Gauss meter, it's picking up variations in electromagnetic field by just. See, we're getting some interference now. They're happy to see us. But it can signify something passing an area, a hotspot, paranormal activity.
What you have down here is you have a lot of negativity, inhuman acts. It attracts a lower type of entity that in past ages might be called demons. There's little creatures that kind of squirm around on the floor. They sort of remind me of things in paintings by Bosch. And it seems like what happened was some of the prisoners that were here, in an effort to intimidate some of, stronger prisoners, we'd say that they were devil worshippers or join the Church of Satan or something like that. But the last ghost hunt we did in Moundsville, one of these little entities followed me home. And for about a month, we had the sound of like a baby crying.
But as you listen closer to this baby crying, you could tell that the voice, the sound was not exactly human. Anybody that I would consider extra sensitive, impressionable in any way should not come to Moundsville Penitentiary, because it can actually affect your health and affect your mood.
We've investigated 3 major parts of
Now
the
that's
prison,
interesting.
3 very active parts. We've gotten a lot of readings with our meters. We've gotten a lot of interesting photos. We're going to check for EVPs. We've gotten a lot of activity. Very successful hunt. This is a very haunted location.
Are there really ghosts at Moundsville? Did Lisa Cox come into contact with one? And what about Gordon Jones? Can they all be mistaken? And if there are ghosts at Moundsville, who are they? Who is Boss Ghost? Who is Shadow Man? Is Boss Ghost the spirit of Red Snyder? Whatever is haunting the cells and corridors of Moundsville Prison is malevolent and does not want to be disturbed. Visitors are not welcome and may be harmed if they stay.
All right, the commercial break right there. What do you guys think? Oh man, I don't know. I don't think I'll be going there in the daytime either.
You're going back out even during the day. Okay.
Sorry, but after that, no, I don't think so. I like my voice box. I like my face. I like my health. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, this woman's speaking truth, because if you're impressionable, it can mess with your health. I mean, it can really mess you up.
I think that was a
So
commercial.
what she was saying was exactly true.
Well, Chad, you went there, or you claim to have went there. What do you think? How did it make you feel going through there? I think I had to skip a commercial. I think that's what that was.
I don't know if he's still even here or not.
I can't see it on my side. How many people's watching?
I'm showing 1.
Wow. 1 person watching? Where is everybody?
I don't know.
Okay, this is Death Row. And this cell just here is a cell where Mr. Patrick James Wayland spent 10 months awaiting his execution along with his own personal guard, Mr. John Lyle. On the day of his execution, he would be taken out of here and accompanied with his guard and the prison warden and a clergyman all the way down to the gallows, taking what we call the walk of death. When you get down to the gallows, you'll stand in front of the trapdoor and the priest will read you your last rites. On the words, "May God have mercy on your soul," you'll step back onto the trapdoor and hang to your death. Mr. Wayland did not actually hang on these words. He hung on his own personal speech, which goes something along the lines of, "I forgive all those who have wronged me. I forgive all those I have wronged. God save Ireland and God save my soul." And on those words, he stepped back and hung to his death. But we also have a number of sightings of Mr. Patrick James Wayland. Had someone walk straight to the bars or open the door and come and talk to them. The description we take always matches that of Mr. Patrick James Wayland. The reason that Mr. Patrick James Wayland haunts the place, they say, is that firstly, the date he was hung at 11 o'clock on the 11th of February, 1869. Superstition dictates that you are to be hung at the 13th hour, the 13th day of the month. Therefore, Wayland was 2 hours and 2 days too early. Such was their haste to get it over and done with. Secondly, he was buried with his noose around his neck. So again, superstition dictates what happened. The noose is to be burnt. Thirdly, he's buried on the prison property, which is now hostel property.
And keep in mind, those who were hanged, they were not allowed to be buried in a holy cemetery.
There has been stories that people say they see a figure in the cells. Some people say that they think it's another hostel or somebody staying here until he walks through the bars. And then they go, "Oh, what was that?"
If I said to you, I saw a man, he had a big plumed hat on, big feathers sticking out the end, and he had a sword at his side, and he had funny little shoes, and you say, gosh, Christopher Columbus haunts this place, you describe Christopher Columbus. People would say, yeah, big hat with I don't know what Christopher Columbus looked like, but all you need to do is mention a few things that would suit a person that you're looking for, and it will match. So what is the match for a prisoner who's hung there? What do you say? He's short, he's tall, he's got a mustache. You know, out of 10 or 12 things you say, maybe only 2 or 3 of them match, but they match a whole bunch of people. But it's very easy for people to say, oh, this is a direct hit.
Yeah, I find when I walk on death row, you know that feeling you get with the picklies on the back of your neck? I always get that. People report having felt cold spots here. They say the cells are colder, some areas are colder. I find this whole floor to be a lot colder. The prison gets quite warm, but for some reason, death row is always much colder than the rest of the place. In 1862, I'm sure you can imagine that the medical field wasn't nearly as advanced, and disease inside of the prison was rampant. Epidemics flew through here like never before, and downstairs in the basement was the quarantine area. Funny enough, it's actually right next to the prison kitchen. It was in this area that anybody suffering from a disease that could be contagious was sent down. They were usually sent there to live out their final days before dying of whatever disease they had. When they built the bridge next door to the hostel, they actually found mass burial sites. Hundreds of people thrown into a pit. It was believed, or it was said, people from the prison, anybody who died here, they might be just wrapped in a blanket and thrown into this pit. One of the reasons that they think that hauntings occur here is actually because of these mass burial sites out in the back courtyard. The injustice of it all to so many people. Next door to the hostel, there's a courthouse. And it was in that courthouse that prisoners would have been sentenced to whatever they were sentenced to. They'd be brought underground and up by the solitary confinement cells. This was done on purpose. The prison was designed so that anybody entering the prison would have to see the kind of torture that other prisoners endured. It was a warning sign. You misbehave, you'll end up in the solitary confinement cells.
They have an area in the jail they call the Hole. And this is where prisoners would be taken for 6 months at a time. And even when you tour the Hole to this day, you can see little etchings on the floor where they had grabbed something in order to make a mark on the floor of the prisoners. And many of them died in the Hole. And to go into the Hole yourself today is quite an eerie experience.
Downstairs in the solitary confinement cell, I know that I almost always feel that there's somebody always behind me. And I do quick looks behind me to see who's there. There's never anybody there. Other people say that they've seen people, that they've heard footsteps. That whole area downstairs, people have said they hear screams, that they hear crying, anything like that. Doors being slammed. All sorts of crazy things happen down there.
I don't think a particular age group, such as older teenagers, would be any more susceptible than adults. Of course, younger teenagers and children are much more susceptible to their imaginations and to suggestibility. But if you take the group that's going through the Ottawa Youth Hostel, they're probably, most of them are late teens. Now, they may be more susceptible not because of their age, but because of their outlook on the world. Many people who stay in youth hostels are trying to seek adventure and opening all kinds of doors to different belief systems. And that may make them more susceptible. They may be more rejecting of sort of the conservative approach to the world, that everything can be explained normally, and they're interested in finding all kinds of new levels of meaning. So that may make them more prone to experience ghosts by misinterpretation of normal things around them.
Well, there's a back stairway in the jail that's connected to the governor's house. But back in the 1970s, when they were restoring the jail, they found an inscription on the wall going down the stairs. And the inscription read that I am a vampire and I will feast on your body. If you want to find the way of the path, you need to climb 94 or 95 stairs and you will find a book at the top of the bookshelf.
There is a story about the side staircase, which is known as the secret staircase. And there was an inscription on the wall, an inscription about vampire ghosts. Now, the story goes is that one of the children, one of the warden's children, was on his way out to school, and it was a vampire ghost. I mean, we're not talking blood-sucking ghosts. These types of ghosts are ghosts that prey on the weak, the young, the sick, the old. Anyways, and that this child was out to school one day, and that this ghost actually possessed the child. This child being young, this child being ill. And he got sicker and sicker. And they were able to tell from little things that he did that this was not normal. This child never really, I mean, he was an active, loving, happy child until one day things switched. And that this little poem was written inside the staircase.
So there are rumors that there is a vampire haunting this jail.
They don't know who did it. They don't know how it got there. It was just there.
For anyone wishing to have an experience seeing a spirit, the Ottawa Carleton Jail is a place to stay. You're guaranteed that you'll see something, feel something, or hear something there.
The old Cornwall Jail, now a museum, is one of
Hold on. I have to skip ahead. That's a commercial, I think.
We went there on a visitation. We were getting a tour of the jail. And it was really actually kind of funny because we were joking about what the cells were like and what it would be like inside the cells. She actually locked me in one of the cells, which I didn't think was very funny.
This isn't funny, Carrie. Carrie, that's not funny. Carrie, come on, where are you? Carrie. Carrie. Carrie, where are you?
I ended up getting separated from my friend, and I ended up in this visiting area. I don't know. It was a really weird room. It was kind of creepy. I wanted to get the feeling of what the inmates felt, to see their family on the other side. The phone rings and I answered it, but there was a dead silence on the phone. And I heard my name called, so I turned and looked. There wasn't anybody there either. And then I heard my name again, but louder and more urgent. So I turned and looked, and again, nobody there. Then I felt a really, really cold hand just swipe across the back of my neck. It creeped me out so bad, I took off running. I was so freaked out. Then I stopped, and I turned around, and there was this man sitting on the stool. He had dark hair, and his eyes were very beady, and he was staring at me. He's staring at me as if he really knew me.
There are 3 phones in the guard's office. One leads to the police station, one to the fire station, and one directly out to the exercise yard. They've all been disconnected. I personally have been out in the exercise yard on 2 occasions with groups of people, and the phone has rang more than once. So curious, I walked over to pick it up, and there was a buzzing sound in it. Hung it up, picked it up again, and it was dead.
Nearly everyone who visits Cornwall Jail reports the feeling of strange presences lurking in the maze of corridors, cramped cells, and common living areas. Others have actually seen apparitions from the jail's brutal past. Spirits who seem to be trapped in this place by their evil deeds.
In the 1950s, a horrible crime dominated the headlines for almost a year. Peter Balcombe, an army sergeant from London, Ontario, brutally murdered his girlfriend. They had met through the army in Quebec City and were returning through Dundas County, where a fatal turn of events began to unfold. Marie-Anne Carrière was a former girlfriend. The two had just recently started dating again, but evidently, on this date, something went horribly wrong. The couple argued, and Marie-Anne left the car and started walking to the nearest town. Balcombe followed her and beat her to within an inch of her life, then pulled out a knife and finished her off, leaving her body to rot in a rural ditch. After a lengthy trial, Peter Balcombe was sentenced to hang for his despicable crimes. He was the last person to take the somber path to death at Cornwall Jail. His spirit joined the many others whose bodies dropped lifeless from the gallows and were buried in the courtyard.
We're located at the Cornwall Jail. We're down in the basement. Now, I would like to ask permission, whoever is with us tonight, to take videos and audios. We don't mean no disrespect. We don't mean no harm. Can you give us any sign at all? Any sign that you're present with us? If you just had an orb?
Just right now at 2:10, I had an orb fly across the screen, the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It was a fairly bright orb. And it was from moving from top to bottom, so sort of on a diagonal.
Whoever is with us right now, please show us that you're here. Can you touch anyone in this room right now? Can you give us any sign, any physical sign that there's someone in this room?
Oh shit.
Who do we have?
Scared the fuck out of me.
Please speak out. Who are you?
Oh, just pain.
The pain was like something was like hitting me in the back of the head. And I felt like my arm was numb, like I didn't feel like it was cut off or something. Like it was just painful, like ripped out.
You got a reading around here. EMF shows approximately 3.5. Do you know who it is, Donna? Okay.
Oh shit, hold on.
Today, the island is known as Karpoon, but sailors referred to it as the Isle of Demons. Sailors believed that souls unworthy of entering heaven were doomed to wander this spot halfway between.
All right. You still want me to go there by myself during the day or night?
No, I don't think it'd be a good idea.
That's what I'm saying. I think no. I don't think so. Oh man, there's no way. I'm watching this. No, I will never go there. No. Sorry, Mr. and Miss Ghost.
Work that off your bucket list, huh?
Yeah, I ain't doing it. I am not doing it, but it is getting interesting. I do like this. Whatever's happening here.
Who are you?
Oh, just pain.
The pain was like something was like hitting me in the back of the head. And I felt like my arm was numb, like I didn't feel like it was cut off or something. Like it was just painful, like ripped out.
You got a reading around here. EMF shows approximately 3.5. Do you know who it is, Donna? Okay.
Tell her to stop.
What is your name? Give me your hand. You know about the white light? Okay, Maria, come on. Jay, come here, come on. Okay, you guys, you know the white light? Surround us, okay? Surround us with the white light. Protect us with the white light. Surround us with the white light. Protect us with the white light. Surround us with the white light. Protect us with the white light. Just talk to them, Donna. Okay? You're the one that's in control. They don't mean no harm. This is just a way to communicate with you. Okay? You just have to talk to them. Tell them there's no pain, you don't have no pain. They don't mean to hurt you. Just a way to communicate with you. You just have to ask who it is and why they're doing this to you. Okay?
I want to know why you guys are doing this to me. And was this the type of pain that you guys went through?
What I think that happened with her is during the 2 weeks ago we did an investigation here, I had an impression of a guard that actually was in charge of this kitchen, and he was probably the one causing physical harm, which is never happens. But she was actually feeling how the inmates were actually treated here in the kitchen.
The kitchen area is quite an interesting area because during the renovations to build that region, the excavators found 2 underground dungeons, if you wish to call them that. They were certainly very small square rooms, no windows, no way to get into them other than to drop someone from above, sort of dropping them into a hole in the ground. There was no record of them ever existing in the jail, and we could find no one who knew of them or had any knowledge of them. But yet there they were, they existed, and just by their sheer existence, we could tell that they must have been used in the earlier days as some sort of a solitary confinement or a major punishment for any of the inmates. The Cornwall Jail was actually built in 1833, 1834, was opened in 1834. In the early days, it served as an insane asylum to a point because there were many people who would bring children that they could no longer take care of who were mentally ill and leave them with the jail keeper to spend the rest of their days here. When the paranormal group were here investigating, they did hear children's voices up in the courtroom.
When we're in the courtroom, there was a lot of activity that we were getting in. It was like around 12 o'clock or around 1:30. We start hearing children playing around. And I asked my partner that's in my group, did you hear anything? And so I just wanted to make sure she heard the same thing as me. And she's like, I heard children playing around, like laughing. And there's a few children. So when the lady, Candy, that works here, said that she heard the same thing. So I started getting a cold feeling and I was freezing. And that's when I knew that there was something there.
At the same time, they felt that they had light footprints showing on the stairwell coming up to the courtroom from the jail itself. In one of their videotapes, they have a small apparition that very much looks like a young child, I think a boy, in fact. So it's not out of the possibility that there is a spirit of a young child here.
Our first investigation, I was sitting in cell block 3, and we had a camera positioned in the back of me, and I was sitting in a picnic table, and I was asking questions. And one of the questions that I asked is, do we have any children here? As I'm asking the questions, we work on infrared, so we don't use any kind of lights. And my light on my camcorder went on and off. So we thought people was playing a prank, so I asked the members, who's playing with the light? They says, no one. And at the end of the evening, the following day, we went home and we actually seen on one of our cameras that in cell block 3, as I was asking the question, do we have any children here? We actually seen an apparition of a little boy coming out from a cell block, coming towards the camera, matter of a second, and going back into his place. So we think that the little boy was the one that actually flickered the light on and off. If you compare different prisons in Ontario, this prison, what happened, which is very unusual, is they have a mixture of inmates, and especially people that were actually diagnosed mentally unstable. They will actually put someone who's mentally unstable with someone that was a petty thief. And I believe myself that there's actually undisclosed information, the amount of people that were actually brutally or physically hurt in the prison here.
During the late 1870s, a man by the name of Jim Sutherland was convicted of petty larceny and sent to Cornwall Jail. What he stole was never recorded, but his punishment was clearly documented. He was to endure a severe whipping for a period of an hour with the use of fine cord. until the body be bloody. Hapless Jim Sutherland suffered further at the hands of a cruel prison guard named Bob, who taunted and beat him mercilessly. Sutherland would go missing for days, to show up more bruised and beaten, and even more withdrawn. Jim Sutherland never made it out of Cornwall jail. He died alone, in solitary confinement.
Another area of the jail that has had a fair bit of paranormal activity is the women's cell. It was built in the 60s, and I know that the paranormal group has on tape what appears to be a woman's voice whispering, "Lock it." Another area that has seen a fair bit of activity is the general population area. There was cells for 10 people up there, but in the last number of years, there were oftentimes double that number of prisoners up there. So it was very crowded. And reports are that there was a fair bit of violence up there. So there seems to be a lot of paranormal activity. We've had doors opening and closing. That's where sometimes the lights are on and we've turned them off.
We're going up to the courtroom to do an investigation into the paranormal activities that have been reported in the jail. This is probably the one of the most active places in the whole jail. There's been sounds of chairs being dragged across the floor when no one was there to make the sounds. There's a original prisoner's box that we've heard opening and closing. So there's been a fair bit of activity up here. Why do you remain in the jail? Why are you still here? Someone, did you hear that thump? Did someone just make a thumping noise? They come from the other side of the room there. One thump.
Just right in this area, I felt like but right now, actually, I'm feeling it right now. There's like it's really drafty in here, like more than usual. I didn't get nothing on my camera, but I feel the energy, like there's something present here.
Right here, I do definitely feel a cold spot. And as I walked to the other side of the room, it got warmer. I don't know if it's a power of suggestion, but I'm feeling what Maria says she feels.
Another area of significant activity is the courtroom, a place where an individual's fate was decided. It was here, in the 1950s, that Henry Sagan's fate was sealed. Henry Sagan had a long list of previous convictions, but in 1954, his life of crime came to an end. He pulled into Leonard Hurd's garage, demanding the day's take. He riddled the owner with a spray of bullets before fleeing the scene. On the day of his execution, Henry Sagan sought the consolation of Father Rudolph Villeneuve. But with only an hour before his execution, the murderer collapsed at Father Villeneuve's feet, dead from a self-administered dose of poison.
Of all my experience, I've been in the paranormal field for 12 years. If I can tell you if there's paranormal activities, this is the place where it is. It's very active where we can't even keep up the amount of sound and video that there is. There's solitary confinement, cell block 3, general population. I mean, there's no place where it's not active. And yes, this place is definitely haunted.
With a long history of enforced confinement, the Cornwall Jail is a breeding ground for paranormal activity. Visitors should listen for the sound of whispers and footsteps. If they're quick, they may even catch a glimpse of the ghosts who lurk in the shadows there. On the island of Carpoon in Newfoundland, a local resident was on her way to visit a friend. As she walked along the path by the shore, she felt a strange presence, as if someone was watching her. Then, from the corner of her eye, the woman saw something on a nearby hill. A man was standing there, watching her. He looked to be in his mid-20s and was wearing an old-fashioned sailor suit. He just stood there and watched her, but then he disappeared. He looked so lonely, the woman thought he might jump. But he walked away and disappeared into thin air. The woman was so shaken, she turned back home.
The island of Carpoon at the very northern tip of Newfoundland is one of the most remote locations Creepy has ever visited. It's a place where people from around the world come to escape the hustle and bustle of their crowded cities and their hectic lifestyles. For many, the isolation and solitude is blissful. But the history of this beautiful place tells another tale. One filled with stories of lost souls and loneliness. The most popular and the most forlorn of all is the legend of Marguerite de Roberval and the Isle of Demons. Watch this.
In the spring of 1542, under the direction of the King of France, a wealthy captain, Jean-Francois de Roberval, set sail to colonize and spread the word of Christianity in North America. A man of stern and relentless disposition, he came to the new land to stake his claim and spread the word of God. His niece, Marguerite, was a courageous and strong woman, looking for a change from the luxury of the French courts. She pleaded with her uncle to be allowed to join them. He agreed to take her along. Marguerite and her servant nurse joined her uncle and his crew. On the long journey over the Atlantic Ocean, the adventurous Marguerite fell in love with one of the rogue sailors. Marguerite knew her uncle would be angry. She had fallen for a man of poor breeding, and the young lovers attempted to keep their affair hidden, but they were discovered. Marguerite's uncle was furious. Marguerite had disgraced the family name and made a fool of him by carrying on the affair under his watch. When the captain ordered the sailor to be executed by hanging, the cavalier pledged his eternal love for Marguerite by giving her his sole earthly possession, a beautiful ring. To make matters worse, Marguerite was pregnant. The uncle was further incensed when his niece pleaded for the man's life, declaring her love for the sailor over her family. So he decided to spare the lover his life, and instead banished both the lover and Marguerite to a desolate island. It was a remote place where many were left to die among the hideous creatures that were believed to inhabit the island. It was a place known as the Island of Demons.
Today the island is known as Carpoon, but sailors referred to her as the Isle of Demons. Sailors believed that souls unworthy of entering heaven were doomed to wander this spot halfway between heaven and hell.
As the small boat approached the desolate-looking island, there was no sign of human life. But there were mysterious shapes moving about in the shadows near the shore, believed to be the fiendish imps and angry spirits. The banished trio was given some supplies, a gun and ammunition, and left behind to fend for themselves. While they watched from shore, the ship sailed away. It was the last sign of civilization in their lives.
They built a shelter and survived off the land. Each day they looked to the sea and waited for a ship which never came. But they persisted, and Marguerite had her child.
Strong winds would batter their hut. The nights were long, cold, and terrifying. Strange-sounding gales were relentless, like spirit voices calling. These were not the noises of humans or even wild animals. The sounds were of another world. Night after night, threatening Marguerite and her family. One night, the lover, unable to withstand the tormenting calls from the spirit, tried to protect his wife and child. He ran from their hut, but couldn't see what made the sounds. Suddenly, he was attacked by an invisible force, which bit at his skin and raged at his soul. The lover returned, beaten and bruised. It was the last time any of them ventured out of the hut after dark. Together, the lonely souls fought for their sanity and survival. But eventually, the hardships of the North Atlantic terrain were too much for them. Marguerite buried each one in succession. The lover was the first to die. Shortly after, the nurse perished.
Nearly insane from anger and loneliness, Marguerite confronted her demons. She needed to find her freedom. She needed to find a way off the island. Marguerite lit fires, but that only terrified passing sailors more. For seeing the smoke rising from the shore, they thought that it was the smoke rising from the Isle of Demons, the smoke rising from the flames of an eternal hell. Eventually, word of Marguerite's predicament reached France, and a ship was sent to retrieve her. Marguerite was saved. Her uncle, however, suffered a very different fate. He was a hard master, and eventually his own ship's mates mutinied and rebelled against his rule. He found himself marooned, stranded on the Isle of Demons, the same island that had been home to Marguerite.
In the mid-1800s, some young children were playing on the beach when one of them found a mysterious object. A ring. As she called over to her playmates to examine the find, an old woman named Emmeline, who lived nearby, approached the children. She asked the children what they were looking at. As soon as they showed her the ring, she felt strangely drawn to it, needing to possess it. She offered the children some sweet biscuits in exchange for the ring. The ring became her most prized possession. That night, the woman had a dream. At least she thought it was a dream. Marguerite came to her and said that the ring had belonged to her. In her haste to get off the island when she was rescued, it had fallen from her finger and was left behind. She also said that the woman must always wear it.
All the time.
As long as she does, she will go to heaven.
Word spread about the ring, and eventually a rich man from town heard the story, and he offered Emmeline a vast sum of money, more money than she had ever dreamed of, but still she refused. Denied, the man became angry, and he left in a rage. Apparently, the rich man must have felt some remorse after having left in such a rage, and he sent Emmeline a peace offering, a bottle of rum. A few days later, Emmeline died mysteriously and suddenly in her sleep. Was she poisoned? No one knows, but she was laid to rest in her grave with the ring on her finger. 2 days later, in the dead of the night, the entire town was awoken by a strange screaming, many people claiming that it was the sound of Emmeline herself. They rushed to the site of her burial and found the grave open. The coffin was there, the body was there, but the ring was gone.
I wanted to literally escape.
I just wanted to find a nice place to find some peace and quiet, do a little writing, re-energize. And just as I was sitting there enjoying this beautiful view, I heard something. So I wasn't quite sure. Then I heard it again. So I decided to go have a look. So I looked around to see if I could find anything. And I didn't really see him at first. But then there he was. And he was kind of there, but he wasn't quite there. You could see kind of right through him. I knew he had to be a ghost. He was calling out. He was actually calling out, and you know, he looked very agitated, like he was looking for someone. He couldn't find him. And you know, I seen him, but I wasn't really scared or anything like that. I kind of felt sorry for him. And then I caught something else. And I looked over and I seen two of them. And there were two women, and they were looking for something, but I couldn't quite make out. And they were obviously very concerned about whatever they were searching. And they spotted me, but they didn't seem scared, or I didn't seem scared of them. But they seemed rather disappointed that whatever they were looking for, I wasn't it. And then they just disappeared. It was really weird. I mean, there must have been some kind of connection between the two of them. They were looking for either the two women were looking for the guy or something.
Did the tourist get an accidental glimpse into the spirit world? Is the spirit of Marguerite still looking for her missing ring? Are the lovers still trying to find each other? Are they tied to this island as part of a penance they must serve? Eternal captives on this Isle of Demons.
In 1832, the British built Fort Henry, a defensive outpost situated on Lake Ontario in Kingston. The conditions.
Now, up on the ramparts, some of the members of the Guard here at Fort Henry have experienced a sighting. They have looked out over the wall and seen a structure standing on the hill. When they question anyone else about what this structure is, they are inevitably met with blank looks. And when they go to point out where the structure is over the wall, they find that it has vanished. Now, little did they know that a structure identical to this stood just on the hill outside of Fort Henry in 1838. And it was the gallows used to hang Niels von Schultz. There was, in fact, a photograph that was taken of this shadowy figure in the window. It's very definitely the figure of a human being. And it could very well be Niels von Schultz. And men were punished when the fort was garrisoned, punished by walking long hours under the hot sun in the parade square. They were forced to march as punishment for various offenses, especially for public drunkenness. Now, it could very well be that this wandering ghost here at Fort Henry was one of those men who succumbed to the hot sun. These men would already be. It's not really all that surprising that they would faint or even drop dead. Another room here at Fort Henry that's generally believed to be haunted is the bakery. And it's haunted by not only an ordinary spirit, but by a poltergeist. Now, a poltergeist is a spirit that tends to be very cruel, but very playful at the same time, constantly moving things around and breaking things. Now, poltergeists are generally tied to the energies of a young girl. And this would make sense because the bakery is one of the very few rooms in Fort Henry where children would have been allowed. On one occasion, there was a baker who was making bread early in the morning. And she left the room for only a moment. When she heard a terrific crash come from inside. Now, she went running back in only to discover that the pans contained in one of the shelves on the wall were flung clear across the room and had crashed against the opposite wall and were now lying in a heap on the floor. And it's also been discovered that the poltergeist likes to play games with the doors. It will occasionally slam the doors and open them again when anyone is inside the bakery. And it will even hold the doors shut when anyone is trying to get in. There was a guard and he was trying to get into the bakery and he managed to open the door by only a couple of inches when it stopped as if it were caught on something. Now he pushed with all of his might and he couldn't get the door open. He began throwing his whole weight against the door, trying to dislodge whatever was on the other side. And finally, in sheer frustration, he shouted,
I gotta get in there.
at which point the door swung open on its own, and he was able to continue into the bakery. Now, this has happened on more than one occasion. Guides from the Haunted Walk have been known to have the door blocked. It's become something of a supernatural jest to say to the door, I have to get in there. At which point the door always swings open on its own, allowing whoever is outside in.
That could be embedded like a recording into the walls. So perhaps somebody who is psychic or intuitive or open or empathetic could come in and act as a receiver. Be that as it may, there's a lot of young teenagers who work there. And that's a great time to have scary stories. And I bet there are some older people that pass on these stories. So these, it's nice to be young and impressionable and, all these scary movies that are out for teenagers embellish and exaggerate and add on to the stories that are there. But there may be an element there of the paranormal.
Fort Henry. It must have been a terrible place to serve. Even today, people hear noises and see things in the shadows. Unexplained events have occurred within the fort walls.
Wow, wow, and wow. That was crazy.
Went from the penitentiary to Fort Henry.
Yeah, the last part of that video kind of stumped me. I'm like, where the hell is this? Yeah, I wasn't expecting that last.
See, I hadn't watched this video all the way completely through, so I thought it just stayed on the prison stuff.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, what? I know this can't be right.
Oh, well, we just got a bonus location through in there, I guess.
Yeah. Golly, that hour went by quick. I didn't even, it's like we just started.
So what's your opinion overall? What are you thinking?
I would go by the place and take pictures. I'm not going in.
You're like, I'll just stay on the outside.
Yeah. I would like to see that place in person and take pictures, but no, I'm not going in. No.
Yeah. I mean, I still stand on the thing. I would probably go in during the day, but not at night.
Ain't no way. No way.
No amount of money gonna get you in there, huh?
No.
And see, like I was telling them before you came, that I had watched a video of a paranormal team that went into the prison to do an overnight investigation and left in the middle of the night. And to this day, whatever happened to them freaked them out so bad they've never done another paranormal investigation to this day.
Oh my God. Yeah, that one was fun. I really enjoyed that. I love the architecture. I think it's just a really fascinating story. It drew me in when I found out we had somebody here that was personally connected to it. Plus, if finding out that Charles Manson was connected to it. I really
that was crazy. The whole Charles Manson thing was crazy. Yeah, I think it was Chad's grandfather that served time in that penitentiary. He has a family connection to it.
Yeah, that was wild, man. But yeah, I think the Charles Manson thing is what got me the most about all this. Yeah, I did not know there was that kind of tie with that place.
Like I said, I had watched in a documentary. I knew his mother had served some prison time, but I didn't know it was at this place. That's crazy. But they never said if they had a separate area like for women away from the men, or was they just all threw in there together?
You know, I don't know. It's a good
They
question.
never said.
So I am
Well,
looking
surely
at
there was. You would think there'd be a separate area for women prisoners away from the men, but
So I'm looking at this place right now on Google Maps, and it is still there. God, this place is creepy. I love it.
well,
but
I
it's
told
creepy.
you would. I told you would enjoy this location.
Oh yeah, so medieval looking. I love it.
Yeah, it reminds you of something that was built in medieval time. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Just from how it looks.
It kind of reminds me of the prison from the Blues Brothers.
Oh yeah, it does in a way.
Joliet Penitentiary.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made that connection, but now that you said that, yeah, it kind of does remind you a little bit of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't think I have anything else unless you have something you want to share with us about it.
Well, regarding this location, no. Next week, though, Outlaw, we're going to Tennessee.
Nice. Can't wait.
Now, where are we going? Where are we going to go? You just have to wait and see.
You'll have to wait and see, guys. That'll be a surprise.
But Outlaw, always a pleasure to hang out with you for these lives. Always.
Oh yeah, anytime. Yeah, I just hated that I was kind of late for this one. You know, trying to wrap up.
Oh, you're fine. I small talk with everybody. You know, I can do that.
Heck
We
yeah.
was just waiting. I wasn't in no hurry. I knew you had something going on, so I was just buying some time.
Heck yeah.
Now don't go to bed tonight dreaming about these places.
Oh God, no. I don't think so. Oh.
Yeah, I guess. Same time, same place next week as we continue our road trip.
Sounds good to me.
But we do appreciate everyone that came and hung out with us for another Spooky Tuesday. And we will see you all here again next week, same time. Until then, y'all take care, and we will see you all then. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.